Okay, thank you. Um, Welcome to this new presentation about the documentation guidelines. This is in the context of all the talks today about documentation in general. Excuse me if I repeat something we have already said, but because it is in this context, maybe they have already mentioned it. And also because there has been people coming in and out, and I don't know who has been before and who hasn't, so maybe I will repeat some. My name is Manuel Cordoba, and I work at Adhoc. And I would like to start with explaining why I'm here, what has been my experience with OCA modules and documentation, in order to give some context of why I have decided to join the documentation group this year. So I have been working at Adhoc for 12 years, more or less. We have been working since version 6, when it used to be called Open ERP. We are an Argentinian partner, and I have worked since the beginning a lot as a functional consultant and building the product we are implementing in Argentina. So, and in our company we have a policy of trying to not customize much our clients. So the product we have built is mainly about Odoo out of the box, some of our models and a lot of OCA models. So in this journey I have read and seen a lot of modules, like a lot, in order to choose the ones that really contribute to our product. And I have seen a lot of documentation that has a lot of room to improvement. And I have also written really a lot of documentation for our customers. So I kind of have some experience on, or have experienced a lot the way to write it in order to the customers to understand it. And when I joined the functional group and saw this problem, I said, okay, maybe I can contribute something about based on my experience. So I say all this because maybe this can inspire the other functional people in the community to join this group, maybe for next year or maybe for this afternoon. So as you already, you already know, each OCA module has a documentation which is in a format of a README file. What we are trying to do here is to improve this README file. I mean, there is a lot of technical things behind that being discussed, and we are going to discuss them now. But at the end of the day, everything ends up in a README file, and that's our documentation. And as I said before, there is a lot of documentation which maybe is out of date, and maybe they are updated, but they do have some room for improvements. So that's a little bit of context. That's why we are here talking about this. And also, as maybe you have already listened in other talks, there is a functional contributor group. There is a documentation group that is working specifically in this. What we want to do is to make contribution easier and to have a great documentation in order to have more users and to have a bigger community. So today we are going to be focusing on structure and guidelines. Before we start, all we are going to discuss, as Julie showed and Flor showed before, there is a section in the OCA website that has all this information I'm going to share today already there written. So if you want to explore more, you can go there and look for it. So we are going to be discussing structure, some guidelines. I say some because there is another talk after this one that is going to complete a little bit all the guidelines. And we are going to be seeing some examples all the way. At the end, of course, some questions if you have. So we are going to start with the structure. This is like all the parts of what we think it's a great documentation. We are going to be discussing each of them, but what we aim here is like to have a standard so that all the documentation looks like the same, and we as functional get used to the documentation, and we know that at the beginning we have some description, then we have some use cases, so that way we are going to be more comfortable looking for modules and using them. So the structure goes like, we first have a description section, then we have use cases and context, installation, configuration, usage, known issues and roadmap, author, contributors, and credits. And we are going to discuss them in detail right now. So the first thing is description. This is the one that is already written a lot. Maybe it has some room for improvement, but this is a mandatory section. So if you go into any OCA module right now, you will find it. This is maybe the only one that we can trust that we already have it, but also because it is mandatory. This one is the one of the only one that is mandatory, and well, you have no choice. But you can see a lot of them that you only have like one sentence, and it's not enough. So the idea here is to explain what does the module does, what is it for, and to invest some time in reading, write 2 or 3 paragraphs to be really explicit about it. So I'm going to access here just an example. If we have internet. Well, I have another here. So this is one README file. The description is the part that appears at the beginning. It doesn't have a title or anything. It just goes the description. And as we said, we have to explain here what is the model for. Then this is a really important for me section which is not having into account almost at all. I mean, I have researched a lot of modules on purpose looking for an example of this, and I couldn't find almost any. And I think it's one of the most important because it explains why the model was created. We think that there is here 3 points we can talk about in this context and use cases part, which is the business need that has created the need of building this module, and so everything starts with a pain, and here is where we have to explain that pain. I mean, we are not able right now to solve this problem, so that's why we have created this module. And also you can give here some context of in which situation this model is going to be useful. So when you as functional has a similar problem to this, maybe you find yourself identified with this problem, and then you say, okay, let's go on looking at this model. Maybe it will help me in which I think, in which I need. Another important thing you can explain here is the approach you have taking to solve this problem, because always you have a problem, you can write some code to solve this problem, but maybe you can find a solution in different ways. So it's a good moment here to explain, okay, we have decided to go in this way. We think this approach can help. And that's one approach. Maybe there is another model that solves the same problem with a different approach, and that's okay. But it's good to mention this here to make clear which path you have chosen to take. And then you have the possibility, or we suggest here, to also comment a bit of, for example, dependencies on which other modules may work with this module, or some special setups you need to do. For example, this is used in a multi-company environment, or maybe this could help also in multi-website environment. This is a place where you can explain a little bit about this if you need to. So this one is not mandatory. There has been a lot of discussion about if it should or should not be mandatory. So that we don't have any more discussion, we say, okay, this is strongly recommended. We strongly recommend it. It's not mandatory, but please, please, please do it, because you will have a lot.
Just a question: who is deciding what is mandatory and what is not?
Sorry? Who is deciding? We are discussing it, and we are proposing it to be mandatory, and then I think the board is deciding at the end of the day. Huh?
It was a discussion on GitHub.
I know, but who take the last decision?
The community.
The community. Okay.
It's mainly, for example, what we were talking before, is sometimes it's like the devs want to go ahead and put the code there in order to use it, and they say, no, but I want to use it now. Why are you putting things in the road? And then you get the main discussion.
We try to keep things easy.
Yeah. But maybe if you have an opinion, you can contribute there. I don't know if there is an issue. And
I agree with the concept.
yeah, I agree. This one should be mandatory, and maybe that will help. So then there is a section of installation, which is not very common, but because it's only to explain when you have some special instructions on the installation. For example, non-Python dependencies, which is not very common, but if you have to do some explanation about this, you have this section. So this one is used only when needed. It's not mandatory, it's not suggested. If you think you need it, then include it. Then you have the configuration, where this is where you explain how to configure the module. And it's here really important to explain really detail the step-by-step of how you configure it, because otherwise you see the description, you see the guidelines, you think it's going to really help you, but when you start configuring it, you struggle a bit, and you don't know, and you end up frustrated, because not because the module doesn't work, but because you still need to configure it some more. Let me show you. I forgot to show you the example.
Did you find one?
Yeah, I found one. I mentioned before that in order to show a good written example, I looked for everywhere, and I couldn't find any example who has all the segment. So this is one of the most complete I found. This is the part of the description we talk about. We don't have any title. You just have the description of the module. You have the use cases context, explaining the three parts. Of course, if you don't have anything to mention about one of those parts, you just don't add it. Then you have the usage, and here is something super related to what we discussed in the last talk, the importance of adding screenshots and good format, because that helps a lot to the functional to understand really how to configure it or how to use the module. Okay, going back to the presentation. Well, the same as the configuration, the usage here is really, really important to be as much detail as you can, including screenshots, including GIFs maybe, and this one is mandatory. The configuration part is only when needed. The usage it's mandatory. If as it is mandatory, maybe you have a module that doesn't really needs much explanation about the usage, so maybe you can just write this module does not have any impact in the interface, and that will be okay. But you need to write something because this one is mandatory. Then there is known issues and roadmap, because sometimes you already have a module working, but you know that there is some issues going on, but you prefer to leave the module as it is instead of not having anything. But you can maybe warn the community, okay, maybe if you are in this context, don't use this because it won't work. Or maybe you have an idea of, okay, for now this is working in this way, but we have all these ideas, so if you can collaborate in adding code in order to solve these problems that aren't already solved, that will be really welcome. Or maybe you just want to explain, we have done this so far, but we have all these ideas and we are trying to get this into the code. So maybe someone that has also that need will wait for you or will know that you are working on that. And in the last part of the whole README, you will find the author of the module that comes automatically from the manifest of the module. Then you have contributor, where you can mention technical contributors and functional contributors, naming them and adding the emails, or maybe URL of the company they work. This one is mandatory. And there has been some controversial about this also. I don't want to get into that, but here is the place where you can name all the contributors. And then you have another section, which is the credits. When, for example, when a company has maybe invested on a module that hasn't directly contributed to it, but you want to mention as a way of thanking this company, so there you have this section. So this is the structure, and now we are going to see some guidelines associated with this. So the first things, I think you already know this, but in case you don't, all this is in a README file that you will find in every module, and this README file is it's written like a script, let's say it that way. I mean, it's not that you read a README file, but you have a lot of files that then the script work it to show in every section after the title what it should. So I want to show this a little bit. We have seen this also in last presentation, but in case you haven't seen it. So for example, in this module I showed you before, this is the module. This is all the folders into the module, and there is a README file. This is the README file we were seeing before, but you have README folder here with all these files. So if you have the description, which is a mandatory file, then it's because there is a description, a file named description, and this script knows that that file goes in the first part of the README. So if you have all the sections, then you should have all these files here. If you skip one, then that section is not going to appear in the README. So then use Markdown syntax. We already discussed this in other presentation. The syntax or the format of the files used to be RST, and I think in B17 we've changed that into Markdown because it's a little bit more friendly user, and we are in this path of trying to make things easier. This decision has been made. So in the maintainer tools repository, you have this folder with all the files already created there, where you can see how it's like you in all of those you have an example of all this I'm explaining here. So about Markdown, as I said, since B17 we have there has been this change made, and in this part of the documentation of the OCA, you will have the documentation about how the syntax of Markdown is, in case you don't know it and you you need to write it. You can find there how it works. Then there is this other tip of using headers in order to keep especially in usage and configuration, where it must be, usually it's quite long, this segment of the documentation. Maybe organizing things with headers will help a lot. And you have to avoid the header 1 because of a technical thing. So if you're using these headers, just skip the header 1 because it won't work. Then there are some other guidelines that we are going to be discussing in the next talk about some tips and tricks. So stay for that one. As a final comment, to encourage you to keep improving documentation and to join the functional team, maybe you can contribute in something else about the documentation. So that's it. I don't hear.
Just to let you know, the next talk will continue this one with, because those were like the structure, the requirements that the OCA modules README needs and has. But in the next, we will talk about tips and tricks and have a discussion. So if you have any questions, keep it for the next talk, because we are a little bit late on the schedule.
Okay, thank you.